Who am I writing this book for? I think I've written it for the British public because there's been so much misleading information put out in the mainstream newspapers and media about what is happening in Gaza that I wanted to write a book which would try and tell the truth about what is happening, the atrocities, the complicity of the British government, the way in which the authorities in Britain have gone along with the pausing the aid to UNRWA, supplying arms, the hypocrisy of all of that, and I wanted to push. I've been very, very careful to tell the truth. I've got more than 1,000 footnotes which just set out, so every statement I make in it is you can look in the back of the book and you can see why I make it. The problem that the public faces is that the British media has not told them everything which is happening. For instance, the awful things going on in Israeli jails. For instance, the Dahiyya doctrine. The British media just withheld the existence of the Dahiyya doctrine, which was employed by the Israelis after 2006 in Lebanon. Which is the targeting of civilian infrastructure in order to terrorize the civilian population. That was something which, as I show in my book, just isn't explained to the British public. The Hannibal Directive, as employed by the Israeli IDF on October the 7th itself, has been withheld largely from the British public. The fact that the Israeli Defense Forces habitually lie about atrocities which they commit is another thing which, if you watch the mainstream media, they always make sure they're giving the Israeli point of view, but given the Israelis have lied so often, I think they should be given it with much more skepticism. It's just very hard work because constantly you're finding you have to rectify false information which has been put into the public by the Israel or the Friends of Israel and by journalists who are simply too lazy very often or too biased to want to tell the truth. And so again and again you find yourself looking at a situation, say Ashifa Hospital, which, as the Israelis say, is this enormous command center underneath it, and actually no, it's a hospital doing its job. And also I think one having to deal with the way in which journalists are represented by the Israelis as terrorists while they're slaughtering journalists, and then that's not being properly reported in the British media. The BBC, for instance, according to one study, just reported 6% of all the journalists. So these are in my profession, my fellow, and I think that's something which is wrong. And the British Foreign Secretary saying there are no journalists in Gaza. Well, there are, and they've been bringing this extraordinary testimony to the world. My biggest motivation was simply to tell the truth. What you must do as a journalist is not to come into something with a preconceived idea. You come in and try and tell the truth.